and kind of see where this initial draft starts to go. We've been seeing Neilma go a lot for these Kuzenbos, these much more aggressive, in-your-face supports. Do you think that we see them kind of shift that priority, or maybe even the Oni Warriors maybe take a shot away from it?
Potentially. I think that, if Cyclone's going to pick something like Artemis, picking Kuzenbo to mess with that seems like it tracks to me. That's the right sort of spot you want to be in. That's one of the challenges overall right now, I think, though, with the Warriors, J-Mac, is that the way that they pick and ban, I'm always saying I like them to play around their dual lanes, but overall, I'm not really sure what they feel like their identity is. I've got my opinion on how it works, but how do they internally feel about the way that they're playing these games? Where do they want to be playing through? And that's what I'm looking for in drafts like we see today, where you're up against a team like the Titans, who is very good, near the top of the standings right now, sitting in that third, fourth place. Can they come in with a cohesive game plan and be ready to take them on, especially when you know that the Titans want to secure that third seed all themselves?
And we are seeing this kind of rise of Odin again, I think, thanks to Final K bringing it to the solo lane. I know you've got your opinions onto it, and I kind of want to pick back into it. Odin as a first ban over anything else. I mean, how important is it to take Odin out of these compositions? I mean, do you feel like he is a warranted first ban and or first pick?
No, personally, I do not. I think that Odin is a very good counter pick. When we saw him yesterday, it was a really good pick for variety when you're looking at things like Mercury and Morgan Le Fay that are going to have difficulty getting out of that cage. It still feels like he's a little bit too one-dimensional in order to be a top pick that you can flex him around a lot of different spots. He can jungle, he can solo, he could theoretically support, but there are just things that I think are better right now. For specifically the Warriors to ban it first overall, that just tells me that they want to wait and see, open themselves up, hope that they get something like a Morgan Le Fay. Maybe they feel like that's very strong for Dardes. I think we saw him play that earlier on in the week, if my memory serves. That's a... Let's try and manipulate these picks and bans so we ban something that we don't ban something that we think is very good, so that we can hopefully get it on the back end.
We'll see what they prioritize. It will be the Artemis, taking that one out of Cyclone's hand and putting it into Votes instead, making sure that they can get their dual lanes sorted out immediately onto that one. Not only that, we do see the Tiamat banned away. We saw the Emoja, and the Morgan Le Fay actually gets her first ban. I believe that's the first Morgan Le Fay ban we've actually seen so far.
I think so. I think you're right. And that makes sense to me because Dardes, like I said, prioritized it. Titans might not be sure exactly where they feel like it falls. And just better safe than sorry. The Titans know that they're a team that is favored coming into this just based on how these two teams have played recently. May as well just make sure that no curveballs get thrown your way.
And with the Morgan Le Fay taken out of the picture, Titans immediately go over to the Raijin to lock that one in for their mid lane, so we're starting to get their 3v3 potentially here with the Osiris locked in. We do know the flexibility that it has. It's been played a ton in the jungle, not nearly as much in the solo lane anymore, so most likely we will see that one going the way of the jungle onto it. And on the flip side of it, they're going to answer in kind with another Guan Yu game. We haven't seen a whole lot of Guan Yu, but today now we're 2 out of 3 games that we're seeing him locked in.
Yeah, all of a sudden might be starting to come back a little bit. I mean, Guan still does a lot of things really well. He still sustains through your team fight very well. He still prot treads pretty well. And if things like Osiris in the jungle are starting to pick up a little bit more tankiness over there, why not go with something like the Guan Yu to actually put some threat onto him?
Khepri, 2 picks, 0 wins so far onto it. How do you feel about the Khepri on Neilma specifically for his play style?
I like Khepri in general. I think he's in a pretty good spot right now. Neil, I think, can play Khepri very well. We think of Neil as a little bit more aggressive, as you were saying. Things like Kuzenbo, Fenrir. Those are the things that really stand out to me for him overall. But I really think Khepri's at his best when you're playing Khepri aggressively, where you aren't just sitting in the back line and waiting for things to happen. People talk about Khepri as not really having that initiation. I really like him up against gods like, say, a Morgan Le Fay, who don't have a mobility option. So if you just blink, abduct them, they have to beads, you ranged root them, they die. And it's pretty simple in those moments. I don't love Khepri up against Raijin in particular because Raijin's damage gets spread throughout a team fight. Khepri much better at identifying, hey, this guy's dying instead of we're all dying. And the ranged root doesn't matter super much against the Raijin because he just can dash away even when he's rooted. So I don't love the Khepri into what I'm seeing from the Titans so far, but in general, I think Khepri is quite good.
Robin very early picked up here into the draft. Third slotted here for the Titans, giving that one over to Scary D into the jungle. Robin is kind of one of those junglers I always feel is more of like a counter pick matchup. It was, the Poseidon hard counter was kind of what, Robin was for a little while. Now we're starting to kind of see him come back here. Hasn't had the most standout of performances as a whole in the jungle or as a whole in the gods so far in recent times. We'll have to see how Scary D can bring it onto here. And we do see two more jungle bans on top. Kali and Loki taken off the board. Meanwhile, Ymir and Terra on the other side. Strange to see Ymir make it all the way to a 10th ban.
Yeah, 10th ban and Terra alongside it. I mean, those are gods that Aurora has played a lot of in his career, so definitely a little surprised that they slip all the way down, but making sure that Scary, remember when Scary was struggling a little bit in the jungle at the very beginning of the season, this Robin was really the first pick where he started to look like a top-tier jungler and really started to look like he could fit into the SPL sort of tapestry as a jungler. So going with that Robin for him, making sure that you lock that in, going back to his comfort zone, I like quite a bit here for the Titans.
Well, with it, the Titans are also going to lock in the Ganesh for themselves to kind of go up against that. I personally love the Elephant. He's not always the best selection, but I feel that Ohm is just such a great ability at shutting down what everyone on this team loves to do. You cancel out the Tallow Assault on the side of Guan Yu. You cancel out the Dash on the Khepri. Who cares about the rest? Hera locked in. First time here we're seeing the Hera.
Hey, man, they must have known that Dolson was on this cast. To give the Ganesh on one side, the Hera on the other. That's his type of game. And look, I've been waiting for this from Dardes. Where is this Hera that he made look so good all by himself? That Hera was completely out of the meta. Dardes single-handedly brought her in. I've been wondering where it is. I don't know that this is the composition that I would have picked it against. This one looks kind of scary to me. If you're looking at, a Robin that can just overhead kick your Polymorph or your Argus drop.
The judgment here of Dardes, who is the Hera specialist.
Given how strong Dardes has looked on this Hera in the past, it makes pretty good sense for him to try and whip it out now up against the Tartarus Titans. But you have to remember, Hera usually does best whenever she has a front line to kind of engage through, and I'm just not really sold on Neilma being able to use that Khepri as aggressively as what you'd probably want for a Hera to do best in.
That's a great point. This Khepri, another pick that has not seen a lot of play, if any. It was a joking question even. I did the QA Twitter segment with the Solar Scarabs, and somebody said, why don't we see any more Khepri? It's your mascot. And Inbound didn't express much interest in playing this pick, and Neilma likes what it can bring to the table here. Look, the Rez is able to flip around team fights. It can keep things interesting there for a little while. But, I think to your point there, there's sometimes a concern being looked at by the Titans here. Going to send Neilma on over. Interested to see if they really full-on commit onto this red buff, maybe just a sneaky steal away. The Raiju does come out from Paul. Not detonated just yet, but now some of the damage flies on through, and looks like the Tartarus Titans have second thoughts.
Seems as though that 3v3 is still not ideal for the Tartarus Titans to want to really toy around
It's really
with.
got to stick for this Oni Warriors team because the rest of the damage still going to be flowing through. Paul aggressive on a Dardes here instead. It's a Tycho Drums. Could this be a solo kill in the mid lane? You don't see that often. Paul doesn't have much mana waiting for the cooldowns there. Sidesteps the damage back in from Dardes. Just a little bit more damage, and the auto gets it done, and it's a solo kill in the mid lane.
That I think could very effectively punish and suppress this Artemis from really having that teamfight advantage.
No skirmish happening in the mid lane. Scary D locked into the chain CC, and Cubo Fred has applied the poison. I'm not sure that's going to be enough to get the kill onto Scary D. So Cubo Fred nearly picks one up, but Scary D able to leave there. We saw some of the damage that Dardes is going to be able to provide here as well. Chronos Pendant, or Charon's Coin, excuse me, picked up for both the mid laners, but Scary D never went back, and Nika calls him on it. It's the rotation and a free kill to the Oni Warrior solo laner.
Great heads-up play there from Nika, just looking for that punish, expecting Scary to be a little bit greedy with wanting to farm out his jungle before looking for that initial back. So that'll put the Guan Yu at least to a slight advantage over Benji in that solo lane. And I'm not sure if Benji maybe just lost track of where Nika was at on the map, or if that call just never came through, period, in case Titans just weren't even aware that Nika was making the rotation. But looks as though Oni Warriors are going to punish even further.
Oh man, if Nika gets another one here, that's big. Ultimate used by Benji. The taunt back in from Cubo Fred makes things interesting, but the interesting stops there, and Benji will be gold. though the kills are even, XP somewhat even here as well. So in the grand scheme of things, still feeling even at this point in the game. Gold Fury could be a tilting factor here. Cubo Fred maybe a bit tilted as the lockdown is there, but Cubo Fred able to dash on away. Argus from Dardes played a big role in the disengage there, and the Gold Fury will get dropped.
The timing, but Cyclone, I mean, already opting to build into one of the rings, possibly going to be Tuckeyes.
Maybe a fight, it's happening. Nika now getting ganked by Scary D, dodges out the ultimate and cavalry charge. Will disengage, and Cubo Fred in just a little bit late. Scary D's ultimate is down, Benji's is up, but Nika's is down as well, so there will be no further chase. On time for the blue buff, that's what we talked about here. What would the junglers do around these blue buffs after Benji got sat on a little bit in the early game? And Scary D is here to help, and blue buff secured by the Tartarus Titans this time.
Benji as far as not only the fact that you're going to be having to deal with some of these late game approaches for these gods, but also this Gold Fury fight might be more than just a Gold Fury, depending on
it's going to decide the game. Oh yeah, baby, here we go. Gold Fury started up by the Oni Warriors. And it's the Dharmic pillars that are down, but the Oni Warriors secure the Fury. Nilma stunned down in place, but the Boar turns the tides now of the fight as Aurora gets stunned down and taken down by Vote.
Only one kill, and it's the Ganesh sitting out for 35 seconds, but Pyromancer's still up for grabs here. Scary's going to actually have the Mystic Rush away, but will get caught out by Cubo. A nice beat to prevent any further follow-up, but Cubo could be in some trouble.
That's a big Taiko drums, but look at the damage from Dardes. Paul has to Thunder Crash away. Benji now polymorphed in the mid lane as well. Nika wants more, and he's found Scary D in the back. Now it's an abduct by Numa, and the re-dive is there from the Oni Warriors, but they don't have the damage just yet. Benji will survive, and it's the Scarab's blessing on Cubo Fred to secure his escape.
Vote, all the meanwhile, is an Artemis, so he will stay primarily focusing that T1 tower. Does open up a little bit of pressure here for the Oni Warriors, though, having stripped away the Gold Fury and that T1 in mid, now means that the Tartarus Titans slightly back. Oni Warriors collect yet another objective 3 in the span of a minute and a half, Dolson.
It's good for the Oni Warriors to have, but it is not a back-breaking for the Tartarus Titans just yet. In this next Fire Giant fight, and that's maybe what the Oni Warriors start to look towards here, going to be doubly important from what we just saw in the Gold Fury.
Gold lead, kind of whatever for Tartarus Titans 19 minutes in, but the Fire Giant could actually have some serious disadvantages for the Tartarus Titans. If Oni Warriors are actually able to take this one for free, it just doesn't really seem as though anybody from Titans is in the neighborhood just yet.
They've reset it. Dharmic Pillars from Aurora goes down onto the FG, and look at the polymorph that's doing big damage, and the auto attacks from Vote are going to whittle away the health bar from Aurora, and then there's Argus to ice the cake, and Vote is around the backside as well to get another kill for the Oni Warriors. When it rains, it pours, and the Tartarus Titans lose 2, and they might lose the Fire Giant as well.
But Cyclone now having started making his rotation. Argus still on the battlefield as well. Cubo Fred trying to do what he can for zone duties. Meanwhile, Vote and Nilmon, they're content to just keep trying to chip away at this FG's health, but it's not going down very fast, Dolson.
We are chilling at half HP on the FG still, and Cyclone Spin and Benji are going to try to close that gap. Paul does have his ultimate here. Scarab's Blessing as well comes back up, so there is zone control for the Oni Warriors should they need it, and need it they do not. The Oni Warriors cleanly balance out the pressure that the Tartarus Titans were trying to bring. They get FG on 5.
Maybe making Nilma sweat just a little bit there. I actually thought for a second that he was going to have to use that Scarab Blessing on himself. But that is one of the only downfalls, I think, of
choice for Cyclone Spin. We'll get an update on that in 1 level's time. It's actually kind of a funny damage.
Well, he could go.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, he could, if he really wanted to prioritize things before a last item buy. But at the same time, it's just like, there just hasn't really been a whole lot of action taking place from the duo side of the map itself.
Right. Triple zeros for Cyclone Spin, and that's what I mean when I say, you know, the damage check for the Oni Warriors has, well, on the other side for the Tartarus Titans hasn't been there against the Oni Warriors. We just don't know yet how Cyclone Spin is going to be able to deal with Cubo Fred, Vote, Dardes, some of those squishier targets. Could get one shot, and we just don't know yet, depending on how Cyclone Spin is able to play this one. Draugr taken down by the Tartarus Titans. That'll help this tower just a little bit and stay on the map a little bit longer. But in the back line, Argus flies forth. Cubo Fred is there. Paul has to use the Taiko drums, but it won't save his life this time. Cubo Fred picks up the first kill. Mystic Rush from Scary D to close the gap, but the gap grows, and the Oni Warriors get the tier 2. They get a kill, and they're looking for the Phoenix.
Such a huge damage towards losing Paul when they did prior to this Phoenix disengage, and now it's Scary in the background. Vote, though, he's got relics available, and he'll use them no problem. His mid Phoenix does end up falling here. Cyclone trying to get the rewind off, and he does, but he's still in the thick of it.
Big ultimate from Cyclone Spin to stay on the map. Might have saved a little bit more of the base from the Tartarus Titans here, but left side Phoenix now looked at. Paul still dead for 30 seconds. Abduct onto Benji. Then there's a silence through from Aurora as well. Titan being whittled away by a couple minions there. But now's the pushback. The Tartarus Titans are just getting zoned out here by Nika. Scarab's blessing onto the solo laner. The left side Phoenix goes down. Hugo Fred might as well, but it looks like the Oni Warriors want to disengage instead. Vote turns the page. It turns the damage onto Scary D, who falls. It's a double kill for the Artemis. And Aurora left running, make it a three-piece, and Vote might have just finished the game.
Vote looking for the Quadra still though, up against Cyclone Spin. Cyclone doesn't have a rewind anymore, so it is possible, but Cyclone will find a kill before getting taken out by the likes of Dardes. However, Vote, the delayed Quadra is still happening as soon as Paul respawns right back to the fountain. And the Warriors looking pretty good there, Dolson.
Wow, that was a slow build-up, wasn't it? That kind of felt, and it makes sense. That was like an SSG-esque game where it's kind of a slow burn, a slow build-up.
Windows that maybe the Titans weren't quite ready for what was coming their way. We win one team fight, we instantly start to keep pressure on. I mean, 18.5 minutes, there's only 2 kills on the board, and it's a totally even game. 6 minutes from now, the game is over. And that's how you know that things got a little out of hand pretty quickly here for the Titans. And it was centered around Neil on this beautiful Kepri play. He played so well. I loved Dardes on this Hera, controlling and setting up for Vote, who really should have gotten the pentakill. I'm sure we're going to hear about that a little bit later on. But just loved the way the Warriors played this game in the tempo that they set. They didn't let the Titans breathe after making a few mistakes. They continued to hammer home on some of those weak points, and were able to find the win.
And we do get to kind of see the final little scoring onto that one, this final big quadra kill that came out for Vote to end the game and seal the deal. 24 minutes in. Like you said, 18 minutes in, it's a dead even game. It's 1-1. Gold is pretty much even across the board, and then it just spirals out of control for the Oni Warriors. And you do see that he gets to pick up the quadra kill on top of it. Should, like you said, have been the pentakill on top of it. And we do get to see the player cam reaction for Vote on that one. He seems very excited and very happy to get that. But also you see just the mouthing of, my penta, guys!
Dude, that is the most animated I've ever seen Vote in my entire life, and that was hilarious. That was so funny. So upset with Dardes for taking his penta. My man has been getting dove under his tier 1 all year. He finally gets a chance to pentakill them, and Dardes steals it. How horrible.
Our second quadra of the day as well, this time around the waist of Vote on that Artemis. A killer performance out of him, 15,000 player damage.
You know, if it starts happening to Titans again in Game 2, then I get a little bit concerned. But I want to see them bring some energy, bring some more force to the game, and not just let it happen around them.
I mean, we see the Titans make some force changes here in the picks and bans for the second game. Like you see there, the Oni Warriors came up with their first one in just shy of 25 minutes for that game number 1. I imagine maybe we see that Capri potentially looked at again. Neil looked fantastic on it. At one of those first highlights we saw, a beautiful save to get Vote out of a really sticky situation, able to come up big for his team onto it. Maybe we see him go back to it. Maybe we see it banned away. But one thing we will see banned away.
Yep.
That's some major respect thrown over to Vote's way. Get that Artemis off the table instantly.
Man, seems like Artemis has gone from, yeah, she might be playable, to the best hunter available pretty darn quickly. I mean, an early ban here from the Oni Warriors, knowing that they were the ones that just played it. I mean, they were the ones who just piloted that for Vote, not wanting to let Cyclone Spin get his hands on it.
Well, Vote says, well, if I can't play it, I'm not letting any of you guys have a shot onto it. He says that cut is exclusive to me, as well as the Tiamat taken off the board on top. And we do see the Kepri banned away by the Titans. Going to make sure to get Neil off of that one. So a change in the duel lane more than anything else. Have to put them on completely new picks this time around.
And I think I like the ban of the Kepri here for the Titans, because that's the type of pick that can coax you into that very passive play style where we can't be aggressive. We can't be the ones looking for picks, because if we all in a god and then Neil saves them, then we've wasted too much and we're going to lose the game. So let's just wait for them. You know, let's wait for them to be the initiators, and we'll counter-engage. And then you just end up never doing the second part. You never end up counter-engaging. So taking that out of Neil's hands and giving your team some more agency in the game, that you can still be the team to say, hey, we're going to hit this guy at this point, makes a lot more sense to me. I like that ban a lot here for the Titans.
Yeah, it's trying to rip through a second health bar that you don't have any abilities to be able to use onto it. You know, you dump, like you said, you dump everything onto the target. Neil comes by and says, and press 4. All right, guys, we're out of here. Let's go again. Let's just wait for them. They burned, how many ultimates they burned? 3? All right, cool. We'll just get them on the next one. And speaking of the next one, the first pick is going to be the Emoja on the side of the Titans.
It's the same sort of team fight presence that we're starting to see a lot of these Guardians go for. We're kind of past the point of Cirquet support, and Inbound just played a really good Hercules support game, but we're starting to see the trend go away from things like that and more to these late game team fight Guardians like Terra, like Yemoja, trying to go more that route. So it is the Yemoja pickup first overall here for the Titans, and remember that it was the Yemoja that got banned by the Titans in Game 1. They made sure that that wasn't going to be played by either side, so maybe going to have to look at a different sort of direction here if you're the Oni Warriors, because I don't know that you can just wait around and hope to out-team fight when you've got something like a Yemoja on the other side.
And interesting to note in the bans, we kind of just glazed past it again, but, the Morgan Le Fay once again banned out by the Titans, this time a first ban for it, so they don't want to give that one over to Paul. Maybe he just doesn't want to play it. Maybe they feel that they don't want to give it over because they got something else for Paul. Instead, they'll put him back on his signature Raijin pick, make sure that he's got something comfortable for it. Flipping over back onto the opposite side, Neil goes from one really supportive frontline Guardian to another one now with this Terra locked in.
Yeah, I think that overall, the more I think about how the last game went and what I want to see change for the Titans, banning away the Khepri, getting Aurora, not Ganesh. Those are the two things that are standing out to me right away, because we're thinking about how do you get to the point where the game is happening to you and not because of you, and it's things like picking Ganesh that is only there to counter-engage for the most part. So I like this switch up. Go with the Yemoja. I like the response here from the Warriors, though. Make sure that you have some sustain in order to match that in the late game, to have the ability to team fight alongside the prowess of something like Yemoja, and Terra certainly fits that bill.
Hera banned away from Dardes, maybe just a little bit of respect thrown onto that one, but I'm seeing Odin there. No surprise, we've been seeing him a lot, but Vamana banned away aggro? What's up with a Vamana ban out of nowhere?
Yeah, Benji's played a lot of Vamana in his career, and maybe they're trying to be picking a mage that does get run down by something like a Vamana. I'm personally not a big Vamana fan. I've seen some more Vamana solo and ranked, like Benevolence Vamana, that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. I'm personally not a believer. I've never been a Vamana believer. I never will be a Vamana believer, and that's just how it goes. I'm a Vamana hater, and I'll say it right here. I don't care.
Not the biggest fan of him either, but I just don't see the need to ban it here. I really don't feel like this is a world where you need to ban a Vamana of all gods going up against. You're still looking at some extra solo lane, and most importantly, you're still looking at jungle potential on the opposite side, so I feel that Vamana is kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere, and instead you allowed the double Doge pickup on the side of the Titans. They get Cerberus and Fenrir locked in for themselves, throwing that Fenrir most likely over into that jungle role.
Yeah, it seems like Scary is really going to some of his signature picks now. The Raven in Game 1, didn't really see too much from that.
Received
the
words
Fenrir
from him post-broadcast, but at least for the next, what is an average SPL game? Like 25 minutes probably? For the next 25 minutes, plus or minus 5 minutes, I'll be safe from the criticism of aggro. But I do want to talk a little bit about Dardes and then this Morgan pick, and plenty of transformation options for space control and damage should the need arise. But it feels like you got Dardes of old a little bit there in game number 1, and that's a great trend for the Oni Warriors if it's able to keep up.
I think what I'm most looking out for is whether or not Dardes plans on utilizing a possibility for double Circuit, or if he even wants to try and turn Scary D's Fenrir utility against him, because the opportunity is definitely there, I think, for a nice Ragnarok to have a pretty heavy impact in terms of displacement, because I think that's the main thing that the
damage and gives you a good chance to win a game. Look at this Riptide. Vote gets pulled back in, but likely will survive here as he's able to dash away.
One of the few benefits, I think, of Heimdall in that laning phase, you're just so incredibly safe with the Bifrost. However, Vote definitely has to be mindful of how far out he actually plans on going with the Bifrost, because you have to remember, longer the teleport, longer the cooldown as well.
Scary D is on a bit of a journey here, invades the red buff, now moving on over, invading onto the purple buff. So this is a great start for the Tartarus Titans. They're able to get
off their game, or at least prevent that Heimdall from hitting level 5 at the same time as Cyclone Spin to give a slight advantage.
Level 5 reached by Cyclone Spin and Aurora, not yet by Neil or Vote. So now is the time to fight. Cyclone Still has his beads. Oh, look at this. Neilma walled on off by Aurora, just shy of locking the Terra immediately into place. But I like the timing there from Aurora and Cyclone Spin. You tick over to level 5. Let's see if we can push that advantage.
But with the ultimates having been expended, or at least losing that River's Rebuke, might make it a little bit more complicated here for the Tartarus Titans to look for another successful purple buff invade. You can already recognize Cuvo trying to ensure that red buff doesn't get stolen away by Scary D yet again. And in fact, it's actually going to be Cuvo getting forced back because of Paul's presence. The Raijin, the rotations as well from Aurora. So Scary still maintains duo side map pressure with the rest of the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, on cooldown, red buff invade for the Scary D, and then immediately over to the purple buff for Scary D. And so now the last 2 reds and the last 2 purples have not been picked up by the Oni Warriors.
Aurora trying to riptide away into safety. Scary actually get chased down by Dardus.
There's 2 of them!
And he's looking to find just 1 kill though.
Scary D Ragnarocking away, but gets taunted back in by Dardus. Look at the chunk damage there. Between the 2. But look at this. It's now the 3rd red and purple buff that is getting pressure put onto it by the Tartarus Titans. This time the rest of the Oni Warriors are going to be here. They're going to try to close that gap, secure up the red buff for the mid laner for once here. Cubo Fred transforms, dashes on away, and then gets riptided back by Aurora. There was a stun on the other end of it. And so Cubo Fred will have to leave. Red buff got dropped down, looks like by the Oni Warriors, but Dardez not able to go in there and pick it up.
Beautiful play though by Aurora. Unfortunate that Scary was out of range to actually look for a follow-up brutalize.
As well. And I think Neil, one of the best to do it here on a pick like this, even get some lockdown onto Aurora. It's the transformation into the Fenrir, and the Ragnarok is in onto Aurora, and Aurora will riptide away. Is that enough? Does Neilma have the stun? No, he does not, and Aurora lives on. Paul was close, putting out some damage. Look at Cubo Fred on the right. Him and Nika both so low here, and both of them surviving, but not for any longer. Benji finds the range damage, and down goes Nika.
That paralyzing spit, good to go. A nice response there from the dual lane. There's a Dulcin Harpy in solo lane.
Right.
There's a big Dulcin Harpy, and
well,
those back Harpies.
Dulcin Harpy nearly got on the scoreboard here. Aurora getting jumped on again here. River's Rebuke gets used, but it kind of funnels Dardez and Cubo Fred on in. Cubo Fred leaps forward. Will Aurora survive yet again? Yes, he will, unless Neilma looks to close the gap over the wall. Aurora drops a ward. Try saying that one 5 times fast, and he'll go back to base and keep himself alive. And so not too much expended in, but look at this. The Oni Warriors have extended forward, and the Tartarus Titans are going to try to close gap.
Neilma is just out of there. Hitting the Jets with the Terra.
Gone on this Raijin. Look, it's a pick where, of course, you want some stack on your Charon's coin, but you know, if you're able to get to that late game state and you feel pretty good about yourself on a Raijin, you're feeling good. Cyclone Spin has to use the beat. Stun on down from Aurora. Here, look at the snipes. Vote will crystal on away, and that's left Neilma right where he is. There's going to maybe be a stun on the other end. What is that damage from Neilma? Cyclone Spin survives, so does Aurora. But watch out, because Paul is rotating in from mid. The Riptide won't connect onto the Terra, but it's a great River's Rebuke that Neilma will not escape from, and Paul will pick up his first kill of the game.
Paul not trying to take any chances here, however. A nice Morrigan Changeling transformation, but Dardez just off the mark. Don't believe he was actually in enough range for the Astral Barrage to connect onto Cyclone Spin like he was hoping for. But I like the initiative that Dardez took, understanding Paul having already made the rotation just a little bit sooner. However, Dardez now could be in some trouble.
Gets Ragnaroked back by Scary D. There's a stun from Dardez on the other side. Aegis is used here, but that one's easy from Paul. Raiju does the last bit of damage there. Scary D uses the beads as Cubo Fred continuing to engage here in the mid lane. Paul doesn't have much, but Benji's going to make his way to mid for the first time this game, and now Paul's got the double, and this Raijin's starting to heat up. He's on a killing spree 13 minutes in.
An absolute bamboozling there from Benji with the blink in on that Cerberus, and also Cubo just shy of connecting with the Deathbane. Had a really nice flick too to connect with the taunt, but missing the Deathbane there means that he goes down without any sort of reward to follow. And now Gold Fury, I think, could definitely head the way of the Tartarus Titans here.
It's a big swing in this game if the Tartarus Titans can confirm this one. Paul uses his beads, so that's a small win for Neilma, able to get those down. But now it's a leap in from Scary D. Benji is still here. Brutalize, follows Neil over the wall, uses the ultimate, and now it's a Stygian Torment from Benji to pull Nika right back into the fray. Scary D leaps on board. Watch out for the snipes from Cyclone Spin. Number 1 is good. Number 2 hits a little bit of damage on the backside, but Cubo Fred has joined the fight. He turns around to kill on a Scary D. It's a 1-for-1 trade as we stand. It looks like that's where we'll fall.
Really nice play, though, from Cubo to ensure that Boat stays alive. He was toast otherwise, had Cubo not been able to shift the attention focus from the Tartarus Titans. But again, Titans fully grouped up, Aurora keeping everybody healthy on that Yemoja. Dardas could be looking to wrap around the backside with the Morgan, though.
Yeah, look out. Dardas is rotating in, does not have the transformation. It's half HP on the Gold Fury. Thunder Crash, no good from Paul. Dardas breaks the ankles just a little bit. And the Oni Warrior showing enough face here, despite a 4v5 on the map immediately, as Scary D respawns just a little bit quicker than Nika. Darda's still working. Does not have his ultimate just yet. Gold Fury taken a little bit low here. Taiko drums from Paul, just to push back Cubo Fred a little bit. Change is in, but Benji's already gotten a kill onto Neoma. Dardas leaps on in. He's found Benji, sends him flying, but then he has to dash away. Aurora will not survive this time. Vote gets his second kill of the game. Scary D used a Ragnarok. That one over onto Vote, but Cyclone Spin able to kite on backwards. Vote goes down. Cyclone Spin still stands.
Nika, though, looking to run him down with Guan Yu. However, he's going to have to actually dash on out of there to safety. Tartarus Titans not looking as healthy anymore after having lost Aurora. Nika possibly going to be able to invade this red buff with Cubo, now backing him up on the circuit. But the main thing that I'm noticing, Dolson, these are some incredibly disjointed team fights. A lot of chaos taking place on both sides. It just doesn't really seem as though the target focus is really all that clear for either team.
Yeah, a lot of splitting up happening. Oni Warriors, you know, they lose numbers-wise, and all of the last engagements, they're at least picking up some kills on the back end. So many times, though, it feels like the Tartarus Titans have been able to get away, and Aurora maybe specifically with such low HP. Luckily for the Warriors, Aurora dies in that previous fight, so they at least get something, the Oni Warriors do. Gold Fury never got taken down, though, and that means still on the map for the Tartarus Titans to look at here. Might be the lowest it gets as Paul and Cyclone Spin wail away on the objective. Nika closes gap, and the Oni Warriors steal it away. The Tartarus Titans start it, but they don't finish it. And Nika with a big swing for the Warriors.
Can't be just a really nice play there from Nika. We talk about it all the time. Nika is frequently a topic of discussion for this Oni Warriors team. And when he keeps making plays like this, how do you not talk about him?
My man strolls on in, uses the cavalry charge to get on away. Feels good for the Oni Warriors. And as Doug showed us a minute ago, XP now dead even, gold still a little bit over for the Tartarus Titans, but the Oni Warriors have closed that gap. Can he do it again? No, not this time. Nika nearly gets it done twice, but now there's a fight on the other end of the Pyromancer that gets secured by the Tartarus Titans. Cubo Fred has to dash away here. The walls from Neoma spread some discourse in this fight. It's pull back in from Benji, but that's put Nika and Dardas within striking distance of Paul, who has to Thunder Crash into the back line. Can the cavalry charge find a stun? It's Paul who does end up getting stunned down, but now Nika left alone. Neoma doing his best to help out his solo laner. Dardas has died to Cyclone Spin in the back of this fight, and the Oni Warriors, they didn't have Vote this entire time.
They didn't have Vote, and Cubo just a little bit too low to stick around. Nika now trying to escape with his life here as Paul continued trying to chase him down in the mid lane, but Warriors just did not have the numbers for that engagement, and Tartarus Titans knew it and took full advantage of the situation.
And now it's going to be a tier 1 tower by the Tartarus Titans. Should go down somewhat quietly here. The Oni Warriors electing to back on away. Vote is now here in this fight, and that's got to be maybe the biggest difference maker in that fight. Cyclone Spin had free range to just kind of walk into the back of the Oni Warriors there.
Back line, if he's close enough to do it.
This game incredibly close here. It's just a 1,000 gold lead for the Tartarus Titans as we crest over the 20-minute mark. Benji looking to keep making plays, and it's Vote that has caught his eye, and all of the damage flies into Vote. Beats used, ultimate used, and Vote still gets Ragnarok right back into danger. Scary D gets the kill, but immediately trades out his life to Dardas. So the Oni Warriors call the Tartarus Titans on a very risky dive, and will pull back a kill onto the jungler.
If Oni Warriors can't find another pick, though, that would definitely be in the Tartarus Titans to market, but when it's obvious that the Tartarus Titans might be looking to pull his Oni Fury, Oni Warriors still sticking around just to make sure it doesn't go down for free. Yeah,
Cyclone's been not concerned about the Oracles here, neither are any of the other Tartarus Titans players. Neoma, Nika, Dardas on the left, Cubo Fred wrapping around to the right, but he's been spotted out by a ward. It's River's Rebuke that catches Nika just a bit out here, and it's a cavalry charge defensively as well as the walls used by Neoma. Cyclone Spin rolls on in here because Neoma just a bit left alone. Getting burned on away by Benji here, but this is a slow burn of a fight. Looks like Neoma is going to get pulled in and eventually taken down. It's a very quietly important pick here for the Tartarus Titans.
Neoma has prots, but Sunder and Ghastly Breath make them practically non-existent here as Tartarus Titans will maintain map pressure for now. They take down the Oni Fury, and that might be the advantage that they need, Dolson, in order to actually start looking towards that Fire Giant. Pyromancer, I would imagine, could be a pretty easy one for the Tartarus Titans to pick up while Neomaw's still dead for another 20 seconds or so. Nice heads-up play though from Cubo, looking for jungle strip away where he can, but a speed buff, not the same as having an Oni Fury and a potential Pyromancer gold to spend.
Nika is on this side of the map, which is somewhat scary for the Tartarus Titans given the steal that happened earlier on in this game. Pyromancer melted away, and Nika won't give it a chance this time. Cubo Fred is stealing away the blue buff from the Tartarus Titans, so there is a flank opportunity here if Cubo Fred wanted to look at it, but instead it's the Tartarus Titans who want to flip the script, get something, pull one over onto Cubo Fred. He's going to have to use the blink away. And so that'll mitigate a little bit.
Sundering Axe online.
He's doing top damage.
Yeah, top damage, but the Fighter's Mask, Dolson.
You're right. I keep forgetting it, and that's on me. Now twice I've not given due credit to the Fighter's Mask from Benji. We'll see if it can play a role here. Neoma got caught out a minute ago, and now is just going to get Ragnaroked right back into the rest of the Tartarus Titans. These individual deaths have cost the Oni Warriors at seemingly every turn here in this game, and now it's going to be a 4v5 fight if they choose to fight around the FG.
Nika trying to do what he can, but a little bit skeptical. Tallow Assault's going to work out twice in his favor. Cuba, Fred, and Dardes both spotted out by sentries, but it's going to force a disengage for the time being.
Dardes is transformed into Terra in this fight as well. Paul uses the ultimate to get some range damage onto Dardes. Look at Cyclone Spin, he's alone in the back line, but nobody's turned around to get the kill. Cubo Fred left alone here as well. Cubo Fred will help out Voten getting a kill onto Scary D, and the Oni Warriors have stood strong around the FG and forced the Titans to leave.
A decent poison spread as well. It's going to make Benji a little bit more hesitant in terms of
1-2-1. Some pivotal moments here in this game, though the KDA might not give proper shout-outs to the game that he is having. Paul at 302. He'll have something to say around this FG. Neoma takes a lot of damage on the initial engage again. The Oni Warriors group up as 5. Scary D just now respawned, so he's out of the fight until he can get over here to the FG, and I think the Oni Warriors probably smart Taco to slow play this one a bit.
Nika can definitely keep the entire team topped off, so it's fair for the Oni Warriors, I think, to continue looking at this Fire Giant. Aurora able to provide the same sort of sustain, though, for the most part with this Yamoja, but with Benji, Hawken, Dardes going to find a nice stun. Another follow-up stun by Neoma. And it's half HP now on the FG.
Yeah, they're still on the FG here. The Oni Warriors have not stopped this one, but now they do. Dardes transforms as he gets stunned down, but he's tanky enough as the Terra to stay in the fight a little bit longer. It's Ragnarok on a Cubo Fred. Watch out for the snipes from Cyclone Spin. They're not able to find a kill, but they're able to push back the Oni Warriors just a bit until the Oni Warriors turn things around. They've got one. They've got two. It's a Thunder Crash away from Paul, but Cubo Fred is in on the chase. Raiju no good. Double from Cubo Fred. Double for Vote. And the Oni Warriors all but deicide the Titans.
Aurora, the only man left standing here for the Titans, and not sure what else a Yamoja can really do here. This Fire Giant certain to go down in favor of the Warriors without a River's Rebuke or any sort of real steal capability or Aurora understanding. He's better off just falling back for the time being. And the real thing that I'm noticing, Dolson, is again, it's just so chaotic here for the Titans. Even though they have, I think, a little bit more separation utility with their kits, they're just struggling to actually combine for anything and hold that thought.
It's going to be interesting. Aurora Riptide's on in. Neoma is low here. His Vote is not pulled off the FG. This is stopped. This is no longer a sure thing. As Aurora's alone back behind the FG, the eyes of the Oni Warriors have to be on Aurora, and they turn them briefly to the Fire Giant to secure it. And Aurora does end up dying, but he made things interesting, and I think that was good swapping of targets.
So Oni Warriors know that their approach has to be a little bit more thought out. And not only that, Dolson, but if even one member from the Warriors goes down here, that could put a complete halt to this Fire Giant siege in general.
Well, everyone's got all their actives, all the ultimates, ready to go as well. Build somewhat close pretty much across the board here. The Oni Warriors now, they're going to split 2 in the mid lane. It's Dardes and Cubo Fred that are there together. 3 over on the left-hand side of the map, answered with the same numbers by the Tartarus Titans. Stygian Torment on to Dardes, who will beads and then stealth his way on out of the fight. On the left side, Neoma gets taken down to half HP as well. Nika charges on through, but now his ultimate is down. So there's a couple important ults that the Oni Warriors had to use. The Tartarus Titans did as well, though. Benji, no ult. Aurora, no ult either.
Probably going to continue struggling if it weren't for the fact that this enhanced Fire Giant is spawning, but now the Titans had to be careful because last time they contested, 4 people died, aside from Aurora, and if that happens with these respawn timers now, it doesn't matter if Oni Warriors get the EFG or not. They can just end the game.
Scary D started this game off well. and has since slowed down 2-4 and 6. Where on the opposite side, Nilma had a tough start to this game, largely at the hands of Scary D, but Nilma has turned it around 0-4-8 on the Terra. Very respectable slash line. The Oni Warriors on the enhanced Fire Giant now. Benji gets pushed on away. Dardes is in on the stun as well. Dash on in from Nika. Nika has found the backline, but at what cost? There's a River's Rebuke on the other end as Paul does most of the damage there to Nika's health bar, but the Oni Warriors, they're not done. They want to surge for it despite not having a solo laner left in this fight. And then there's a double stun on the other end from the Tartarus Titans as well. Damage pouring out from Cyclone Spin, who can now roll forward. And roll forward he does on the vote, and finally notches a kill.
Tartarus Titans getting the better end of the Oni Warriors. It's the River's Rebuke for me in that team fight, Dolson. Nika just too far out in front of the rest of the troops. Oni Warriors could not follow up as effectively as they have been, and Cubo also not able to stick to Nika's side. Just no way to really threaten Paul in the backside there. So much expended for the Tartarus Titans as well, but they just keep the Oni Warriors at bay, and now they'll take the Enhanced Fire Giant for themselves. Fred was dealing with a Raijin and the Emoja.
Talk a lot of time being spent dancing around this Oni Fury. There's 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the Enhanced Fire Giant buff, and the Tartarus Titans outside of a little gold from towers haven't been able to crack that much of the Oni Warriors base here. The Oni Warriors happy to just kind of sit and stall things out. They might even feel comfortable taking a fight, though it would be tough against an Enhanced Fire Giant team. So much time being melted away from this FG buff. Oni Fury down to half HP. We'll see if another steal is maybe in the book. Cyclone Spin has used his ultimate, and he's got Dardes pretty low here. Half HP on the Morgan. Tartarus Titans eventually grab the Oni Fury, and now the Oni Warriors, I don't think they want any more. They're trying to back off.
Scary D went on tour looking for Dardes, unable to find anything, but Nilma could be dead here. Keep an eye on Nika as well on the backside, trying to create some pressure, but instead it's going to be Dardes with another follow-up here, and Cubo takes out Scary D and keeps it going.
Vote's on the backline as well, trying to 1v1 onto Benji, but instead it's a 2v1, and Vote will win that one every time. So now 2 members dead of the Tartarus Titans, 3 left standing with the Enhanced Fire Giant buff. The Oni Warriors lose Nika, but I think they did
a little bit more damage on whoever is actually trying to receive some of that sustain from Nilma and Nika, so it's just causing the Oni Warriors to stay on their toes here. But the Oni Warriors, they're still perfectly content with trying to take this Fire Giant down first.
Dardes has got the stun onto Scary D. He has to immediately transform, and Terra is the choice yet again. Double stun from either Dardes or Nilma, but stun nonetheless. Cyclone Spin up in the air. He'll send some snipes on towards the Oni Warriors, but none of them result in a kill just yet. Vote has caught one with his ultimate, and so that'll crash right back down, and it's Benji who gets chain CC'd, but it's not enough from the Oni Warriors. Not just yet, but now Nika re-engages. Cubo Fred is there as well. Benji, the first casualty, and the Oni Warriors are happy with that.
Cyclone Spin almost left out in no man's land. Got a little bit fortunate there, I think, that the Oni Warriors were more determined on eliminating the front line, because they know without Benji, it's going to make life incredibly difficult for the Tartarus Titans to continue trying to contest this EFG. Nika, Dardes, Cubo, all hunting, and they found Scary.
That stealth from Dardes was big. Got the stun onto Scary D. And now the Oni Warriors, they've dropped the Fire Giant entirely. The Oni Warriors, they want to fight, and they want to try to end this game. Double stun from Nika. The Cyclone Spin takes that Riptide on back to safety, but how safe is he really? Not very, says Nika. And the right side, Phoenix being worked on.
They don't even need the Enhanced Fire Giant when these respawn timers are as long as they are. Dolson still another 20 seconds for Benji. Paul, no ultimate. Aurora, no ultimate. This could be the game to end.
Could be the game. Benji is up in 15 seconds. River's Rebuke back up from Aurora, and it gets used, but it's not done all that much. The rest of the Oni Warriors walk around on the other side. Paul, he's going to try to do something here, but he's not got a lot to say. The Oni Warriors turn around to the turnaround, and they'll take the set in 2.
Dardes using Paul's own kit against him, looking for that close. The Changeling, as well as the River's Rebuke, cooldowns coming down.
Real war of attrition between 2 teams that had a bunch of sustain on both ends. And whenever that happens, it really your margin for error goes way down, because you have to pick your exact moment where you can get a kill, and you have to really make it count, because if you miss one auto, you miss one ability, all this sustain is going to really change things. And this, to me, J-Mac, I mean, I know the Warriors played really well when it came to Phase 1 playoffs, and I was very impressed with that. This might be their most impressive set of the year for me, because I think they really did not come in and get bailed out by the other team making a lot of mistakes. It's not that, you know, they heavily outdrafted or anything like that. I thought that both teams came away with pretty good drafts. I think that this was the first time in a while that I've just seen the Titans, or the Warriors rather, come out and just play really good Smite. And if you're a Warriors fan, this has got to be so exciting for you, because this is a team that has way too much talent to be where they are in the standings. They know it. We know it. I'm sure they're lamenting it way more than anyone else. And I'm sure it feels really good to come out and find a 2-0 victory against a Tartarus Titans team that has not been struggling, that has not been dropping games they shouldn't. They've been playing good Smite, but today the Warriors came out and just played a little bit better.
And I think one thing to also highlight was that Fire Giant that they did manage to pick up for themselves. And onto that, we move into the schedule of what we did get to see this weekend. A very chaotic weekend of games. We saw the Leviathans taken down or get the loss over the Kings there. The Kings come up 2-1 on top of that. Oni Warriors managed to pick up 2-0 victories this week, once against the Scarabs and then with the Titans. A couple of 2-1s on Saturday, and obviously our 2-0s out today. And into the standings we go. Middle of the pack. 4 teams sitting at 3-3, bottom 2 both sitting at 1-5, and then the 4-2 and 6-0 still at the top of the standings.
Man, a big traffic jam right in the middle there, and to think that the Oni Warriors are now tied with the Jade Dragons and Atlantis Leviathans after the phase 1 that they had, really starting to hit that stride. Of course, top 6 is what's always important, it feels like, in these moments, and we're getting past that first half of the phase. We're starting to get into the point where it's going to, games are going to pick up. We're going to start broadcasting again on Thursday starting next week. So you got you have an extra day of SPL. You've got to start to buckle down now, and when you've got that many teams at 3-3, and look, let's be real. We know the Jade Dragons are not going to stick at 5th place or whatever they are. Those teams have got to try and keep pace now with each other, because there might be some separation sooner rather than later.
And I think that's something you may have just a little grazed over there. SPL back on Thursdays, a very big one for it. So we're going to get more action for it. You're going to see more games and more shakeups amongst the standing for it. We do have the next week's schedule available for you guys as well to see what we're going to be looking at here. And first off, on Thursday, Warriors taking on the Kings, Bolts versus the Valkyries. Then moving into Friday, we had the Leviathans versus the Valkyries, Dragons, and Titans. Then the Dragons have another game right after that against the Scarabs on Sunday. Bolts and Oni Warriors as well on Saturday with that. And then the Titans and the Kings and Leviathan Scarabs to round out the weekend.
Man, what a reward for the Warriors, getting a 4-0 weekend and looking really good. They get to go up against the Kings and the Bolts. Are you kidding me? The 2 top seeds that they've got to go up against. So we'll see if they can maintain that momentum.